The case of the Marine, once missing, now murdered, and the search for the man believed to have killed her. The Sheriff, Ed Brown, has been the face of this investigation, and he's had plenty to say about the suspect under very difficult times. At times, Brown has virtually convicted this man, Laurean. You heard from Brown earlier saying, quote, he's committed this horrible crime, unquote. Here's another example of Brown making it clear what he believes about Laurean's part in the case.
I know dates and times change, but to the best of evidence at this time, it was on or about December the 15th, when Maria was killed by the suspect.
Well, there you go. Let's bring in the legal roundtable. Anita Kay is a former prosecutor. Drew Findling, a criminal defense attorney, live with us from Atlanta. Drew, I got to tell you, when you find a woman's blood all over a living room, when you find her corpse and that of her unborn baby in a fire pit where they've had a party in the backyard, when the man suspected of doing it is on the run, it might be hard for even a professional to misspeak. But you, as a defense attorney, I'm guessing, would have a field day of field days with these statements.
You know, absolutely, Shep. And I'm going to say something that's really for the benefit of the future prosecutor. I mean the person that is going to try this case for the state. The last thing they need is this sheriff taking advantage of his 15 seconds and being presumptuous.
Do you really
and
think
casting
that's what
aside,
he did, Drew?
Oh,
don't you really
absolutely.
just think that, don't you just figure he's a police officer, and here's what he has. I mean, he has this suicide note, he has this blood, he has this thing, he has this rape accusation. He has the body of the victim in the backyard of the man who was taken off from Mexico. He believes to the core of his existence that the man, and maybe he just misspoke for our consumption.
No, he needs to rise to the level of his profession. He's not a deputy, he's not a sergeant, he's not a colonel. He's the elected sheriff. He has a responsibility to his citizens and, more importantly, to the district attorney to hand over a case that's going to be clean.
You think,
a case that a defense attorney cannot rip
anymore,
into.
Do you? You think
well,
they can claim rush to judgment?
He has given fodder for cross-examination, and that's the last thing that this young lady's family needs. It's the last thing the prosecutor needs. And as a defense attorney, let him keep on blabbing, because all he's doing is giving a good, solid defense attorney the opportunity to rip into him and his subordinates. So, hey, from a defense standpoint, keep on opening your mouth, Sheriff. You're helping us.
Anita Kay, as a prosecutor, and the prosecutor in this case was on with us a short time ago, would you be concerned based on what's been said, or are we making way too much out of this?
Shep, I wouldn't be concerned at all. This is what happens time and time again when you're a prosecutor. Oftentimes you've got a sheriff like this who goes in front of, national media, who has no experience, no training. No one's prepped him. He doesn't know what to say. He's a little bit speaking off the cuff. He's from a small town, don't know how many investigations he's led like this. As a prosecutor, you get into court, you're going to clean it all up. What really matters is the evidence, and the sheriff has talked about what evidence they have. Then we can all draw our own conclusions, as we always do in any case like this. He's on the run. Where is he?
Nothing has been said that makes for grounds for dismissal or throwing this out, or nothing that could really jeopardize the core of this case, is there?
Correct. No, nothing that could.
Hey, Shep,
as a prosecutor, you deal with this all the time. A cop says this, a cop says that, and you look at the evidence. And when you go before the jury, it's all about the evidence.
As just an observer of the process, which is what I've been doing for a couple of decades, just as an observer watching the television in my bedroom this morning, I was like, ooh, hurting, because it certainly sounds as if, and I think Drew Findling would agree to this, it sounds as if with her blood in his house and her body burned in the fire pit in his backyard, that he probably has something to do with this. I mean, it's not as if even Drew Findling, you certainly don't want someone who murdered a woman who was 8.5 months pregnant to go free. Now, I know better than that.
Well, let me say this, Shep. You know my opinion on that, but I think it's more than coincidental that we cannot not bring up that we learned in the state of North Carolina you can avail yourself to the Attorney General's office or to the District Attorney's office. You can't use an excuse that he didn't have the opportunity to seek out help from others. He did not need to go in front of the cameras and blab. It's so obvious to me. He jumped at the opportunity so he can say, hey, I've been on Fox.
Oh,
Shepard
you don't
Smith
know his motive, Drew.
Absolutely.
You don't know if he... Listen. This is a small community. A young American hero Marine has clearly been murdered, and a life that never took its first breath never will because of somebody. And anybody who wants to say this is all just about publicity for this man forgets that even this law enforcement officer is a human being in his town where he is in charge. A young woman has been brutally murdered, and he's trying to find the person. He might believe inside of himself. He just shouldn't have said it,
you
man.
probably got him 500 more votes right now, Shep.
I'm not campaigning for anything.
This is emotional. This is an emotional fine for them. Yeah. And he's got a response, and, you know, he's a human as well as a sheriff, and he was presenting the evidence. But, you know, he also, like I said, he doesn't have media training. He doesn't know how to speak to the media. We all want to know what's going on, and he's trying to tell us the best he can.
There is a bottom line on law enforcement, though. You can't convict until a jury says so. I mean, it is there. There's no denying it. It's been said. Drew, I guess you'd hope he'd be a little more careful in the future, huh?
Hey, Shep, I think he's probably raised about $5,000 more for his campaign from this 5-minute segment, so he's probably thanking you right now.
Well, thanks so much, Drew. Legal analyst described